Hello, adventurer. It's good to see you. You have made it to the morning grind.
Welcome, welcome.
It's the live stream at the beginning of the Geekverse, where we talk about all types of topics in geekdom, gaming, and fantasy, with an emphasis on being constructive and creating the things that we want to exist in the world.
It's all on the grind, Sizemore. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
That's exactly right. There are a lot of adventures to be had today. Dungeons to explore and monsters to slay, and who knows what a random encounter might send our way. That's why we have to prepare. So settle in now for the morning grind with your favorite beverage in hand.
Tea? Or maybe something a little stronger. I've got a few bottles of the old Wynyard left.
Whatever you want. Pull up a chair.
Dude.
If you're feeling fancy, how about a cappuccino? Or a frappuccino? Or how about an espresso?
Just tea, thank you.
Sounds good to me, Gandalf. Whatever you want. I'm just glad you're here.
Everyone is welcome. You can just watch if you want. You don't have to worship anything you don't want to worship.
Thank you, Mike. But be forewarned.
Sometimes we get really strange characters around here.
Wait, what's that you say? Why can't you come and be a part of the stream?
My wife would disown me.
Oh no, I bet she'll be fine with it. Come on in.
Am I scared for my safety? No.
What are we supposed to do?
Everybody do the secret handshake.
Secret cultist handshake.
Oh, now do wizards who love each other.
This, my friend, is a science.
I still don't have gills, but it's fine.
It's all on the grind, son. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
Dude, this would be a sick place to bring the band.
Indeed it would be, Dave. It really would. I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. Glad to have you here. Oh, look, here's someone new.
Is this the cultist meetup?
Yes it is.
Come to hang out? Please accept me. I have nothing else.
Okay, we accept you. Everyone's welcome here.
Brought some snacks.
Well, that makes things even better.
You want some coffee? I don't drink coffee.
You sure? It's cultist coffee.
What makes it cultist coffee?
I'm a cultist and I'm drinking it.
Oh. Then I'll have some.
What exactly is going on here?
I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome, welcome. It's so great to have you. Oh, and look, here comes another stranger.
Can we help you?
Yes, fellow cultists. I could really use some food.
Oh yeah? Welcome. We have donuts.
Oh, it's me. I'm glad I'm here. I'm sure you have a few questions for me, though.
What's your name? Who do you work for? What god do you worship?
Great questions, Rob.
I'm Steve King, and I worship Nyarlathotep.
No, not really. I'm just Heath, and I won't be worshiping anything this morning. But I will be your host. Welcome to the office. We're going to have a great time. I've got my coffee ready, because now it's time for the morning grind.
If you could become a fish, that would be amazing. Then I could command you with my mental fish powers.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to the morning grind. Welcome to the office. I'm Heath. I'll be your host. I hope everybody's doing well this morning. I was up early and working, and then went and took a nap again. So now I'm here. So good morning, Multiverse, and good morning, George. Good morning, and good morning, Stray. So there's still a lot of work to be done here because I'm still trying to get ready to launch Goodnight Sword on Tuesday. I'm basically pretty much done with that, though. I've got to go over the Indiegogo page one more time in detail. I think it's ready, but I need to go over the entire page, and I got to write up and still send out some emails to people about the coming campaign. So that's what I've got to do over there. And then I have got to continue to work on the Christmas story because I am way behind. Good morning. Good morning. Good to see you. So, and then I yesterday I did go over and make another pass through the Christmas story based on what James Bacon had sent to me. So Brianna and James Bacon had sent me some commentary back, and hopefully I will get some from Doug this weekend, but then basically that's it. And then I got to actually work on creating that book as well as getting the Kickstarter page up and starting getting some people interested in it. So lots of stuff going on. Lots of stuff going on. Hey, Robert. Good morning. Good morning. So I just have, let's see, I've got Diet Mountain Dew today. So I've got some Diet Mountain Dew. Why don't we go over here? We may be a bit of a brief morning today, but let's go over here and go to our reading from the War of Art. Give us some inspiration for this morning. So everybody got your drink? I've got my drink. 2 deep breaths, complete inhales, complete exhales, and then take a sip of your favorite beverage. So here we go. Oh, George says Monster Energy low carb. Nice choice. Nice choice. That'll get the day started. Here we go. And sip. There we go. And yes, please do check out the Raven Keep Discord. Stray just posted that in the chat. Thank you. All right, so today we're talking about resistance here. This is The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. Resistance is everything that keeps you from being everything that you can be, and especially when it comes to some type of creative endeavor. So we are all trying to overcome resistance. I can't believe we're already halfway through October. So especially if you're getting ready to do NaNoWriMo with us, we got to get ready to prep all of our material. So that way, when NaNoWriMo hits, when November hits, we can just start writing. So resistance. Next section. Book 2, Combating Resistance, Turning Pro. It is one thing to study war and another to live the warrior's life. Telamon of Arcadia, mercenary of the 5th century BC. Professionals and amateurs. Aspiring artists defeated by resistance share one trait. They all think like amateurs. They have not yet turned pro. The moment an artist turns pro is as epical as the birth of his first child. From epic there. I don't think I've ever seen epical as an adjective. With one stroke, everything changes. I can state absolutely that the term of my life can be divided into 2 parts, before turning pro and after. To be clear, when I say professional, I don't mean doctors and lawyers. Those are the professions. I mean the professional as an ideal, the professional in contrast to the amateur. Consider the differences. The amateur plays for fun. The professional plays for keeps. To the amateur, the game is a avocation. To the pro, it's his vocation. The amateur plays part-time. The professional, full-time. The amateur is a weekend warrior. The professional is there 7 days a week. The word amateur comes from the Latin root meaning to love. The conventional inspiration is that the amateur pursues his calling out of love, while the pro does it for money. Not the way I see it. In my view, the amateur does not love the game enough. If he did, he would not pursue it as a sideline, distinct from his real vocation. The professional loves it so much he dedicates his life to it. He commits full time. That's what I mean when I say turning pro. Resistance hates it when we turn pro. Let's do one more section. A professional. Someone once asked Somerset Maugham if he wrote on a schedule or only when struck by inspiration. I write only when inspiration strikes, he replied. Fortunately, it strikes every morning at 9 o'clock sharp. That's a pro. In terms of resistance, Maugham was saying, I despise resistance. I will not let it faze me. I will sit down and do my work. Maugham reckoned another deeper truth, that by performing the mundane physical act of sitting down and starting to work, he set in motion a mysterious but infallible sequence of events that would produce inspiration as surely as if the goddess had synchronized her watch with his. He knew if he built it, she would come. All right, so what the Writer's Day feels like, I guess that will be tomorrow. What happened? James Reinhardt? Stray just gifted a membership. Thank you, Stray. Stray gifted a membership here. Thank you very much. So who did that go to? James Reinhardt. James, you just got a membership. Are you here? Are you in the chat with us right now? You should be, because the algorithm should... oh, hey, Keith. Good morning, Zero the Blade. Lots of people coming in. George says, no kidding, I'm way behind on my Dungeon 365 project. Oh, yeah, I remember the Dungeon 365 project. I didn't jump in on that one, but I heard people talking about that one. Multiverse DM says, DJ your story is a writer-driven process to learn your story before you write it, similar to how DJs build out a music set, mixing various artists to tell a story. Resistance hates it when we turn pro. That's the Threshold Guardian. I hate them. Oh, how much I hate them. Ah, yeah. Resistance as a Threshold Guardian, or all the sources of resistance as a Threshold Guardian. Okay, so what we've been doing here, we've been taking a break from RPGs because we did about 200 of those. And at the moment, I've been trying to get through stories, and we've been trying to prep our stories for prep our material for NaNoWriMo, because there are so many people who want to write for NaNoWriMo, and it could be a novel, could be a screenplay. A lot of people are working on RPG books. It doesn't matter, as long as you're trying to get 50,000 words, then you're in. But for those of us who are trying to write some type of story or screenplay, we had been taking a look at the Screenwriter's Bible, which I realized I personally had not finished. It was one of the first books that I had picked up on screenwriting, and then I realized I myself hadn't been all the way through it. And it is one of the classics and one of the foundational texts on that. Of course, on Table Talk, we very frequently meet to talk about story. And so checking this one out is one that should be done. So this is prep for NaNoWriMo. Stray says, I was doing the Dungeon 23 challenge, and I started running a march, West marches. Oh. Well, when you're actually doing the gaming, that's always a good excuse to not have done something else. Let me bring up the auxiliary camera here. Go auxiliary camera. So that's why we're doing this and what we're doing. Because this is one I needed to go through badly. And there's some other books I need to go through badly. Needed to review a bunch of RPG stuff. That's why I did it online for the morning grind with everybody. So that's what we're doing here as well. So, all right. So let's take a look at, so this is, like I said, the Screenwriter's Bible. Formulaic writing. There's a moment in the Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl, which I need to watch that movie again. I remember really loving the first Pirates movie. I think they, as I recall, they lost a little bit as they went. But I remember loving the first one, but it's been so long since I've seen it. George says that I love dungeon crawls, and that was a convenient excuse to build another. There's a moment in Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl, when Elizabeth, aboard the Black Pearl, demands that Barbarossa return her to shore. She then cites the pirate code, the rules of the Order of the Brethren. Barbossa responds, in part, the code is more what you'd call guidelines than actual rules. The same holds for this book. I present guidelines rather than rules. Please don't internalize the above guidelines as a formula. The book is not intended as a write-by-the-numbers text. It's your handy guide for a successful writing journey. In reality, you can do anything you want as long as it works. Oh, that's exactly what James had said. I wonder if he got that line. I know he said that in the comment section. I wonder if he got that line from here. In reality, you can do anything you want as long as it works, but you've got to realize, okay, we're doing something non-standard here. What are we going to have to do in order to make it work? Or why does it work in this particular case? Or what have we got to do to make it work? Almost every guru and teacher has as his or her model a paradigm for structuring and outlining a screenplay. Among them are the following in no particular order. Michael Haig's six-stage plot structure, Robert McKee's The Quest, Linda Serger's story spine, John Truby's 22 building blocks. I don't have Truby's building blocks. I don't know these books, it seems like, but I got we got Truby's the story genres. Zero the Blade says, if the rumors are true, Pirates of the Caribbean were based off the Monkey Island game. I don't know that one. Sid Field's Paradigm, Blake Snyder's Beat Sheet, Christopher Vogler's The Hero's Journey. Now that one I got and been through that one. My own Magnificent Seven plot points. All of the great 8 paradigms named above are loosely compatible and present different ways of looking at the same thing. Basic story structure. They are provided by master teachers and are worthwhile as guidelines, not as jackhammered into granite rules. Precisely imitating someone's surefire model without a strong application of creativity may result in formulaic screenplay. You can name a few classic and successful movies that do not exactly follow anyone's paradigm. Movies such as Shrek, Napoleon Dynamite, Gravity, Being John Malkovich, Spy Kids, Sleepless in Seattle, Interstellar, and Oh Brother, Where Art Thou are fun to watch partly because they're so fresh and original. They use classic dramatic structure in innovative ways, and in a few cases bend the framework. In the case of Joseph Stefano's Psycho, directed by Alfred Hitchcock, the framework is broken when the protagonist is killed before we are halfway through the movie. The tactic shocks the audience so forcefully that it's a tremendous amount of suspense is created, enough to carry us through the second act. Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction tells 2 stories. One is how Jules, Samuel Jackson, comes to believe that God has a mission for him. At the showdown, he doesn't shoot the robber because he's going through a transitional period. In the other story, Butch, Bruce Willis, refuses to throw a prize fight and comes to terms with his boss while escaping with his life. Each of the 2 stories has a beginning, a middle, and an end, but the events are not presented in the exact chronological order. I wouldn't try something this tricky as my first script, but it illustrates an unorthodox and effective use of dramatic principles. Perhaps the most traditional and rigid paradigms is the love story or rom-com romantic comedy basic structure model. The 2 lovers generally meet at the catalyst and are thrown together by the big event. But the backstory gives rise to a flaw which interferes with love. Even so, they may fall in love at the midpoint, or at least one does. I guess it's one person, and are separated at the crisis. In the showdown, one or both overcome the flaw and they get together. In the end, the realization comes that they will live happily ever after. Hallmark has made a lot of money off of this little formula. Please note that the creative use of the Magnificent Seven plot points in Sleepless in Seattle, where Annie, Meg Ryan, meets Sam, Tom Hanks via a radio program. So please note the creative use of the Magnificent Seven plot points. We went over those last time. Good morning, PH. Please note the creative use of the Magnificent Seven plot points in Sleepless in Seattle, where Annie meets Sam via radio program, and by the midpoint, the 2 are interested in each other, all without ever saying a complete sentence to the other. The classic crisis separation is manifested by the great gulf between the Empire State Building and the Rainbow Room, where Annie dines with her fiancé. Who will Annie choose? The guy who has not spoken 2 words to her, or her sweet as sugar fiancé? Annie makes the crisis decision by racing to the Empire State Building, a la An Affair to Remember, where she finally connects with Sam. This can be seen as the showdown or climax and is without an opposition character or antagonist. Oh, this is Sleepless in Seattle. I was thinking You've Got Mail during this time, but it's Sleepless in Seattle. I was like, that doesn't sound like that. I'm not sure I've seen those 2. In fact, much of the interpersonal conflict in Sleepless is provided by Sam's son, Jonah. There's not a lot of inner conflict. Oh, plus there's a lot of inner conflict, some of it motivated by Sam's backstory, his wife's death. Thank you, Nora Ephron, David Ward, and Jeff Ark for your innovative approach. A Beautiful Mind is an episodic story that deals with a man's entire adult life. As with Pulp Fiction or Sliding Doors, the story doesn't precisely follow anyone's paradigm. At a key point during the second act, John Nash faces a crisis decision. He must choose between his wife, Alicia, and his imaginary life. It's here he realizes that his imaginary friends do not age. He now believes he has found the key to solving his schizophrenia problem. This leads to the main crisis that determines his fate. Instead of placing the main crisis in the hands of the central character, as one would normally recommend, it's Alicia who must make the key decision to sign or to not sign the commitment papers. This is followed by a longer than normal first act. I have no quibbles with any choices made because they worked wonderfully. It's a beautiful and dramatic film. Dramatic structure is at once firm and flexible. There are many ways to tell a story. In fact, I maintain the structure is not the same thing as formula. No, I completely agree with that. Structure and formula are not the same thing. Some stories do have formulas, but that's different than having a structure, I think. A good example of that, you remember the movie Home Improvement? Not the movie, the TV show Home Improvement? Well, even just in many cases, I think a lot of episodic... Oh, I'm supposed to increase the size of this. That might help, at least a little bit. Like Home Improvement had a formula. A lot of those stories will. A lot of those TV shows like that will. What is an episode of this particular TV show like? It follows a set formula. That's different from a structure. A structure and formula are different. Thor says, I love that film and so glad Jennifer Connelly got her Oscar for it. I'm going to have to look into this a lot more. If you follow Blake or Hogue, you fall short. That's about 1,000 hours of film courage in the least words possible. Your basic structure may change and evolve as you write, so be open to new creative insights. As Paul Haggis, who wrote Crash, put it, subvert people's expectations. Avoid cliches of structure, character, and dialogue. Every story has its own structure, its own life, its own way of unfolding. Let your story and characters use you, the writer, to express itself and themselves. I like that. Of course, subverting people's expectations, that carries a lot of baggage in today's world. Every story has its own structure, its own life, its own way of unfolding. Let your story and characters use you, the writer, to express itself and themselves. Okay, designing powerful endings. I got to work on this because I realized that one of the last things that I really have to work on the beat sheet for the Rabavania script is I realize the end has got to be different from what I originally put together. So let's see what this says. Billy Wilder said, if you have a problem with the third act, the real problem is with the first act. To some extent, screenwriting is about setting up your audience for payoffs later on. Foreshadowing an element for a later dramatic or comedic payoff is one of the many things that make writing fun. I'm going to highlight that one too. That may not always be the case, but when we're talking about setups and foreshadowing, that seems like something to think about. If you're having a problem with the third act, the real problem is with the first act. Begin with the end in mind. Before David Seidler wrote The King's Speech, he recalled Francis Ford Coppola telling him that he wrote his screenplays from the ending backwards to the beginning. The King's Speech, of course, ends with a big speech precipitated by the beginning of World War II. Seidler knew that when he plotted the action, he used that speech as his starting place and plotted his way backwards to the Wembley speech at the beginning. The Wembley speech, of course, sets up or foreshadows the big speech at the end. When you plan a trip, it's helpful to know where you're going. Of course, some writers prefer beginning at the beginning and writing in a kind of journey, not knowing their final destination or having only a vague idea of it. Oh, Multiverse says, yes, subvert tropes. That's an interesting way of putting it, too, because it's not subvert expectations. And now tropes are, people expect things to conform to tropes. So, but it's got a little bit of variation there. Of course, some writers prefer the begin. And that's perfectly okay. Most screenwriters create some sort of an outline before writing a script, and in that outlining process, they usually start the story's beginning and work their way to the end. Starting with either the beginning or with an end can work beautifully. Each writer works differently. You need to decide on a method or process that works best for you. I only suggest that you consider writing backwards method as a possible writing tool, at least in terms of the outlining. In fact, I'm going to work on exactly that, because I kind of know the beginning here. So I might, when I sit down with the beat sheet, man, so much to do. I didn't get as much done yesterday as I wanted to. Kind of got drawn away at the end yesterday. But really thinking about the end and working backwards would be a good way to go. Regardless of how you choose to approach your writing, when you get stuck or have a third act problem, it can be helpful to first decide how you want your screenplay to sequence to end, and then figure out a path that will get you there. Sometimes that approach helps you see where you got off track. Take a minute right now and ask yourself, how do I want my movie to end? You shall reap what you sow. Brianna's pretty good at that. She even knows like the ending credits music for the things that she's been writing. In Act 1 and sometimes Act 2, you will sow seeds that blossom in Act 3. I remember watching the movie Aliens at the movie theater and watching Ripley, Sigourney Weaver, ask the sergeant for permission to drive the loader, a futuristic forklift with a mechanized exoskeleton that includes an extension of the driver's arm and legs. Thus, the driver could walk and move the forklift-like arms for heavy lifting. I thought it was an original contraption. It appears in Avatar too, but because the scene was about Ripley proving her worth to the sergeant, I soon forgot about the loader. The primary focus on the scene was a clever depiction that kept me from recognizing the importance of the loader. Then in Act 3, the mama alien is about to devour the little girl when suddenly the warehouse bay doors opened and out stepped Ripley driving the loader. The audience in the theater burst out in spontaneous applause. That's the essence of a powerful ending, carefully setting things up and then paying them off in an unexpected, surprising, and fulfilling manner. Paying them off in an unexpected, surprising, or fulfilling manner. That's a principle to remember. The writer fooled the audience by planting the clue earlier in a scene that was focused on a separate issue. The relationship between setup and payoff lends the script a sense of unity. Character-driven stories. Does the same approach work in character-driven movies? Yes. The King's Speech opens with a prince without a speaking voice or a personal voice who became a king who finds his voice in both ways. In the first act, the act of a speaking voice betrays a lack of confidence as a royal. The powerful ending proves that England has a king it needs to be inspired throughout World War II. One key to a great ending is seeing the central character or someone else overcome his or her flaw, completing a growth arc. Ideally, the showdown or climax will challenge the hero's flaw. That is, it will provide the opportunity for the flaw to be finally overcome. Why did the author bring an umbrella to the story? Not sure. Thor says, subverting tropes for the sake of nurturing creativity is great. Subverting expectations for their own sake is a recipe for making something predictably bad. I agree with that. And my problem with what people think of now when they think about subverting expectations is doing something, setting people up to believe that X or Y is coming, that Y is coming. Hey, we're setting everything up like we're talking about to pay off something. And people can get very invested in figuring out what that is, where the story's going, what I can learn about this story based on past events. But then if you know, hey, everybody was expecting X to happen as a result of everything being set up. Now we're going to do Y. And that breaks it. That's not subverting expectations. That's undermining your storytelling. Is a joke. Why did the author bring an umbrella to the story? Because they heard there's a chance of rain and there's not a cloud in sight. Crash was one of those movies I sat in silence for like 10 minutes after the credits, speechless. Whoa. Get the big picture. Before you can focus specifically on your powerful ending, you need a crane shot of the entire movie so you can see the whole thing at once. It's important to see the forest before you examine the trees, to take a macro look before you get into more micro issues. I often hear writers respond to my script evaluations by saying, I'll change such and such and fix the problem, or I'll just add a scene here. Sometimes that's all that's needed. More often, the writer needs to tweak the entire screenplay so the whole becomes greater than the sum of its parts. 2 golden keys to great endings. Create a fascinating character who grows or changes, with whom the reader or audience can get emotionally involved. We'll discuss character in a later chapter. 2, include a surprise twist in the plot. The character's final actions and the twist, if there is one, will result in a meaningful and emotionally satisfying experience for the reader and the audience. The keys must be in place to facilitate an impactful ending. You create that powerful ending with your use of the 7 writing tools. 7 tools for creating a surprise twist. Oh, this is going to be good. But I like this. 2 golden keys to great endings. Create a fascinating character who grows and changes, with whom the reader and audience get emotionally involved. Include a surprise twist in the plot. The character's final actions and the twist, if there is one, will result in meaning and emotionally satisfying experience for the reader and the audience. Seven tools for creating a surprise twist. When we think of a surprise twist, we think of movies like The Sixth Sense, The Usual Suspects, Fight Club, and perhaps Planet of the Apes. These movies feature big twists. A movie can have a little twist that has a powerful effect. First, let's turn to a movie with a big twist. You probably remember the shock you felt when you first watched The Sixth Sense. You mean he's dead? Malcolm Crowe is dead? There are 7 writing actions that made this surprise twist work. Think of them as writing tools. Let me go to a different color here. Know what the twist is going to be. M. Night Shyamalan knew what he wanted at the end before he wrote the beginning. All right, so step 1. Know what the twist is going to be, and then you write to it. Present a convincing deception. After Malcolm was shot, the first thing we see is Malcolm meeting with Cole in a church. Okay, so this is present a convincing deception. After Malcolm is shot, the first thing we see is Malcolm meeting with Cole in a church. He seems perfectly normal because he's introducing himself as Cole's doctor. The clincher is a little later when we see Malcolm sitting across from Cole's mom in her apartment, implying they have been talking, probably about her son. Implying is the operative word here. Then Cole arrives. At this point, there's no question in our minds that Malcolm is alive and normal like everyone else. After these 2 incidents, we will choose to see things through the filter of that false perception. There are many ways to mislead a reader or audience. For example, in a detective mystery, the writer may introduce a red herring clue or a suspect to throw the audience off. Misdirection can create tension. Sometimes simply withholding information does the trick, as it did in Planet of the Apes, which we will discuss a little later. Foreshadowing. Foreshadow the hidden truth. For the scene referred to above in which Malcolm sits across from Cole's mom, they do not say a word to each other. After all, in reality, she can't see him, but her son can see her because he sees dead people. When we watch the movie a second time, we see scenes from a completely different frame of reference or perception, and they make sense. The same is true for the scene in which Malcolm arrives late for the anniversary dinner with his wife. She has finished her meal. He apologizes and tries to pick up the check, but she grabs the check before he can and says, "Happy anniversary." The second time through the movie, it's clear she cannot see him, but is at the restaurant because she misses him on their anniversary. He provides a clue in the scene. "I just can't seem to keep track of time," and he admits that they've been distant lately. The key here is to write scenes that can be seen in 2 different ways. You lead the audience into the false perception. The truth is hidden, but foreshadowed in a way that is not predictable. There are other clues scattered throughout. For example, Malcolm only wears the clothes he wore the night that he was shot. So we want to write scenes. It can be seen in two different ways. You lead the audience into the false perception. Oh, I read only 2 parts of my 3-part bad joke. Oh, I did. Okay, so PH Arbest says, why did the author bring an umbrella to the story? Because they heard there's a chance of rain, but there's not a cloud in sight. Foreshadowing twist, but just you wait. In Act 3, the flood of plot twists will pour. Gotcha. However, the most effective foreshadowing comes when Cole confesses to Malcolm that he sees dead people. Malcolm asks about these dead people, and Cole says they don't know they're dead, and they only see what they want to see. Connect the twist to a love relationship. This is number 4. Malcolm loves his wife, and in the context of communicating with her, that he realizes he's dead. The story is about communication, the theme. After the realization, he says farewell to her. That adds an emotional component that would not otherwise be there. Incidentally, a love relationship does not necessarily mean a romantic relationship. It can be a friendship or family relationship or a work relationship. Reveal the clues and foreshadowing. In the final sequence, when Anne, Malcolm's wife, drops the wedding ring, Malcolm recalls the moment from the past as part of his realization. These come in the forms of visual flashbacks and voiced-over dialogue, audio flashbacks. He hears again, recalls Cole's description of ghosts, that they don't even know they're dead, and they only see what they want to see, and so on. The advantage of this is that this has been a long time since I've seen this movie as well. I remember this came out when I was working in the movie store. So I saw it then, and it was a big, of course, a huge deal. But it's been a while since I've seen Sixth Sense. The advantage is that we, the audience, get to see several moments from the screenplay in the light of this new revelation. It all makes sense. It all seems inevitable. This is precisely how the endings of The Usual Suspects and Murder on the Orient Express unfolded. Does it have to happen this way? No. Emphasize the central character's realization. When Malcolm Crowe realizes he's dead, the writer milks all the emotion he can out of it. Malcolm stumbles back and up the stairs. And if you're a movie lover, you'll notice that the wallpaper pattern on the stairs matches the pattern on the pillow Malcolm lays his head up again. It lays his head on when he's shot. And then Malcolm returns to his wife to explain what he's learned. Moments of the wedding reception play on the TV monitor. Emphasize the theme. This is I think this is really good here for making an effective twist. Because it should go with the theme. The twist should be about that. 7, emphasize the theme. Malcolm communicates with his wife. There's no fear now. Communication eliminates fear. Your task as a writer is to apply any or all of the above 7 elements to your own surprise twist. Not all need to be used. They are tools for your use. Select those that seem right for your project. So, know what the twist is going to be. Present a convincing deception. Foreshadow the hidden truth. Connect a twist to a love relationship. Reveal the clues and foreshadowing. Emphasize the central character's realization, and emphasize the theme. So The Usual Suspect and Shifting Paradigms. That's one I've seen several times. A worthwhile exercise is to view movies you love that have powerful endings and ask yourself why those endings are powerful. How do they utilize the 2 golden keys? And which of the 7 tools described were above? I've already mentioned The Usual Suspects. Clearly, 2, 3, 5, 6, and 7 were used. 2. Well, The authors must have known what the twist was going to be, too. Well, I mean, maybe they wrote up to that twist. Who knows? But clearly, 2, present a convincing deception. Yes. 3, foreshadow the hidden truth. Yes. 5, reveal the clues and foreshadowings. Emphasize the central character's realization and emphasize the theme. Yes, those were all used. We are fully convinced that Verbal is a small-time operator by his looks, disability, and manner of speaking. The bulletin board is present throughout most of the screenplay. In fact, Christopher McInerney, the writer, said he got the idea for the screenplay while staring at a bulletin board. That implies that he may have known the ending before he wrote the screenplay, number 1. Okay. We all know Sable got that man shot. Thor says they cheated a little in Fight Club, showing flashback scenes differently than they were originally shown. But that's revealing how Tyler is manipulating Jack's paradigm. Really? I wonder if Fight Club was on our table talk list. If they did that, though, you're right. That's a little bit of a cheat. But it might go reveal, the different impression that the character actually had, that the character was actually having. Notice that the realization in both The Sixth Sense and The Usual Suspects is a paradigm shift, a complete turnaround. Field of Dreams and personal pronouns. In Field of Dreams, the surprise at the end is that Ray, the central character, Kevin Costner, meets his dad as a young man and gets to play catch with him. They connect for perhaps the first time. The first 2 minutes of the screenplay set that up with narration about the strained father-son relationship, and it's touched on throughout the script. Early in the first act, Ray hears a voice say, "If you build it, he will come." Both the deception and the hidden truth are in the personal pronoun he. Who is he? Well, after Ray hears the voice again, he has the vision of the baseball field and of shoeless Joe Jackson. He believes, and we believe, that he refers to shoeless Jackson. That's especially when shoeless Jackson shows up to play. Did you see the interplay of deception and the foreshadowing truth? Notice that all the surprise at the end involves a love relationship. Also notice the surprise at the end involves a love relationship, father-son. I don't know. Have I seen Field of Dreams? Let me put that one on my list. We may end up having to organize some watch parties. Small but powerful twists. In The Shawshank Redemption, Andy and Red met for the first time, with Andy asking Red to find him a little rock hammer. As part of the background of the story, Andy is seen as something of a rock hound. The rock hammer becomes the means of his escape in the end. It's such a little thing, but the ending is powerful because information was withheld until the end, the deception, and Andy has been digging with that rock hammer for years. In Casablanca, we don't know which two people will end up on the plane, so I don't see that as a final surprise twist. Rick's decision is clearly foreshadowed in the roulette table scene, helping the young husband buy passage. However, some choose to see it as a final twist, and it certainly applies numbers 3, 4, and 5. Foreshadowing the hidden truth, connecting it to a love relationship, and then revealing the clues and foreshadowing. However, there's one final twist that has a huge impact. After Rick gets Laszlo and Elsa on the plane, Louis tells him, "I suppose you know this is not going to be pleasant for either of us." Louis tells him, "I suppose you know that this isn't going to be pleasant for either of us, especially you. I will have to arrest you, of course." Certainly, Rick threatens to shoot Louis a little earlier, so Rick naturally replies, "As soon as the plane goes, Louis." Rick and the audience expect Rick to be arrested. But Louis, like Rick, But Louis likes Rick, so when the gendarmes arrive, Louis says, round up the usual suspects. Although supported and foreshadowed in previous scenes, the believable deception and the believable twist happens at the same time. These scenes also make clear use of number 6 and 7 from our 7 tools, emphasize the character's realization and the theme. Yes. Oh, you put, okay, I'll have to check that out. I want to see what you built. Perhaps the simplest and most straightforward of the surprise endings takes place in Citizen Kane. In the opening, Kane's dying word is rosebud. The movie is a search for the meaning of that word. There is a scene of happy times in Kane's childhood with him riding a sled. In the end, we find that rosebud is the brand name of the sled. Kane was thinking about his happy childhood when he died. There's no deception, just a setup and a payoff. We talked about that one. That, yeah, the audience knows, figures out what that is, but the meaning isn't clear to the people who are actually searching for it in the film. How about the twist in High Noon? Pacifist Amy Fowler, Grace Kelly, shoots the bad guy, something the audience at the time never expected. It doesn't seem like that big of a deal today because it's been repeated at least in 100 movies since then, to the point that it's become cliche. But it was quite powerful in 1952. The predictable ending becomes unpredictable. One of my favorite movie endings is from Planet of the Apes. I'm going to make note of that one too. Planet of the Apes. Stray says, I have to keep, I keep having to remind myself that you're a teacher. I get like laser focused even with my ADHD. You have to remind yourself that I am? The predictable ending becomes unpredictable. One of my favorite movie endings is from Planet of the Apes. In this case, only numbers 2, 3, 6, and 7 appear to have been applied. As I understand it, the producers thought the original script was too predictable and asked the question, what if they are actually on Earth and not another planet, and neither the audience nor the human characters know it? Then Rod Sterling was brought on, and the result was the specific solution, the now famous Statue of Liberty scene. If your ending is predictable, maybe you should start asking some what-if questions and do some completely off-the-wall brainstorming. Relax and have fun. Don't be afraid to get crazy. You can always come back later and fix whatever you come up with. It may be that you don't need a final twist. Many great screenplays don't have a twist in the third act. Conniving Coco's twists. The main twist in Coco comes in 2 parts. The idealized, and 2, Hector is Miguel's real great-great-grandfather, not Ernesto. Oh, okay. Well, okay. So, okay. You're my teacher. Okay. Well, thank you. So know in advance what the twist is going to be. In Coco, the writers knew in advance the correct identity of the great-grandfather, Hector. Present a convincing deception. I don't know this movie. Present a convincing deception. Because Ernesto's guitar is in the torn picture on Ofrenda, we believe the man is the picture is Ernesto. Because Hector is the charming trickster, we can't be sure what he says is true. The deception is in the characterization. Foreshadow the hidden truth. Hector says of Ernesto, we've got to go back, and I taught him everything he knows. Hector plays the guitar well. Ernesto is surprised to learn he has a great-grandson. Hector wants to return to the 3-year-old daughter. Coco was 3rd when he was murdered. Connect the twist into a love relationship. In the case of Coco, it connects to 3 love relationships. Imelda and Hector. I'm going to skip this because I don't understand. I don't know anything about that movie. So that doesn't mean anything to me. This says, can there be twists in scenes? Yes. Subvert the reader and audience expectations in individual scenes as well. See chapter How to Make a Scene in Book 2. So yes. Subvert reader expectations in individual scenes as well. Let's do a little bit more. I've still got tons of stuff I've got to do. Story layering, plot, and genre. Now we have the basic understanding of how screenplays work. Let's expand that and deepen our story. So, story layering, plot, and genre. In virtually every goals and needs, in virtually every story, the central character has a conscious goal. The goal is defined here as whatever your central character outwardly strives for. Of course, opposition makes it almost impossible to reach that goal. That opposition usually comes in the form of either a person who has either the same goal or who, in some other way, opposes your central character's goal. So, yes, and this was something that Butler was talking about. Hey, remember to make sure that your character has a need. But we tend to know that here because we tend to be genre writers. Beneath it all lies usually unconscious and subconscious need. Okay, beneath all of that, unconscious or subconscious need. That may be what Drake talks about. We've got the physical level. We're going to have to get something, but on the mental level or the invisible level, we're also going to have some type of theme. Why did the protagonist always carry a ladder in Act 1? To climb over all those plot hurdles. But by Act 3, they realized it's a comedy, not an obstacle course. I'm going to go watch. I've been watching YouTube videos like always. I need to go back over to Film Courage. I didn't get to watch that yesterday. This morning as I was working, I was reading some of the stuff that was coming out of Gaza, or watching some of the stuff that was happening out in Gaza. So I did that instead. PH says, I'm unstoppable with a dad bun and all. The need, as defined here, has to do with self-image or finding love, healing wounds, or living a better life, whatever the character needs to be truly happy or fulfilled. This yearning sometimes runs counter to the goal and sometimes supports or motivates it. Even if the character is aware of his need, he discounts it and denies its importance. The crisis often brings the need into full consciousness and emphasizes its importance. And this is you can have a want and a need too. Drake talks about that. And generally the story will be a tragedy if the hero gets what they want. It'll be a success if they get what they need. Because this yearning sometimes runs counter to the goal and sometimes supports or motivates it. Even if the character is aware of the need, he discounts it or denies its importance. But we know what he needs. The audience. Usually the need is blocked from within by a character flaw. This flaw serves as the inner opposition to the inner need. The character flaw is obvious to the audience because we see the character intentionally or unintentionally hurting people, possibly including himself. The flaw is almost always a form of selfishness, pride, or greed. So we're going to block the need with a character flaw. This flaw serves as the inner opposition to the inner need. And the character flaw has to be obvious to the audience. Where does the flaw come from? Usually the character's past. Okay, I like that. I got to think more about the flaw of this main character I'm working on. Sometimes something happened in the movie. I had one, but it ended up not being the right one, so got to change it up. Something happened before the movie began, or sometimes in the first scene, that deeply hurt the character. That backstory haunts the character enough that he acts in inappropriate or hurtful ways. In other words, the character is wounded in the backstory and carries the wound scar until finally healed to the end. Let's see if we can learn about goals and needs from twins. Vincent Benedict, Danny DeVito, is the central character. His conscious, measurable goal is $5 million. There's a strong outward opposition to this goal. A really bad guy wants the money as well. Vincent also has a need of which he himself is aware. He needs to find the love of a family. Blocking him is his own greed and selfishness. He's out for himself. This is the character flaw, and it's motivated by the backstory. His mother abandoned him, and he learned early that all people are out to get him, so he'd better get them first. Vincent can never have what he truly needs until he gives up his selfish and self-pitying point of view. This is a neat little story because the goal and goal and the need happens to oppose each other at the crisis. Vincent must choose between the two. He can escape with the money, his goal, but sometimes holds a gun on his brother, a need. But sometimes holds a gun on his brother, his need. He can escape with the money, but he needs his brother, and he's the one putting a gun on him. What will Vincent decide? At the crisis moment, he finds himself unable to leave his brother. Why? In the later scene, we learn that he really cared, but didn't fully realize it until the crisis. That's why he turned around and willingly gave up the money to save his brother's life. Vincent reformed. He gave up something he really wanted for the sake of his brother. Fortunately, in the end, he gets both the family and the money, and his wound is healed. The writer gives the audience what they want, not the way they expect it. Don't you love those Hollywood endings? The writer gives the audience. I think it's interesting he says the audience here and not the character. He gives the audience what they want, but not in the way they were expecting it. Two stories in one. Movies thrive on action and emotion. Thus, screenplays usually tell two main stories. Think of them as fraternal twins. Oh, so this is similar here. Think of them like fraternal twins, dual plot lines, or the two key story tracks. So, screenplays, this is not two in one. This is saying movies thrive on action and emotion. Thus, screenplays usually tell two main stories. No, I think it does. So these things are both in one. In a single story, the action story is driven by the external goal. That's what Drake would talk about, the physical elements, I believe. It's sometimes referred to as the spine or the external journey. Thus, the external journey driven by the goals rolls into the action track. It's the action story. The emotional story derives from a relationship and or the character's emotional life that's generally driven by the internal need. It's sometimes referred to as the heart or the internal story. Thus, the internal journey driven by the need rolls on the emotion track. It's the emotional story. And is generally driven by the internal need. Okay. To find the emotional story, look at the direction of the key relationship in the story and or the character's growth arc. Sometimes there is no internal journey, no backstory, no flaw, and no inner need, as in many thrillers, action adventures, and horror movies. In most James Bond films, 007 has no flaw or need, only a goal and an urge. Like with flat arcs there. Each story has a track or plot. The action story and the emotional story has its own turning points and structure. One is the main plot, the other is the main subplot. However, the two stories are intertwined synergistically. Let's see. I don't know twins. The examples are better when I've watched the movie. Oh, look, Romancing the Stone. We watched that one. In Romancing the Stone, what is Joan Wilder outwardly striving for? She wants to find the stone so that she can save her sister. Is this a clear and visual goal? Yes. Is she consciously aware of what she's after? Yes. Is her goal opposed by anyone? Yes. Zolo wants it, as do the kidnappers. And Jack Colton wants the stone so he can buy a boat and sail around the world. What does Joan Wilder need? Romance. Is she striving for romance? No. She writes out her fantasies with her romance novels. Her flaw is simple indifference. She won't try. In this story, she gets what she needs by striving for the goal and overcoming her flaw. See, she gets what she needs, which is romance in her life. The stone is the external journey. The romance is the internal journey for the character arc. In my script consulting work, I receive many scripts that are completely missing a goal. To illustrate, let's pretend like I was consulting for Diana Thomas when she first started writing Romancing the Stone. She tells me she has a script about a woman who goes on vacation to South America and falls in love with an adventurer. Sounds interesting, but it's not compelling enough. So I asked Diane about the goal. Happiness is Joan's goal, she responds. Happiness is not a goal. It's too vague. Well, romance is her goal. That's it. That feels like more like a need than a goal. It's actually part of your emotional track. You need an action track for this internal story to roll on. Well, vacationing is her goal. She consciously wants to have a good vacation. She's deserved it after all that writing. Diane relaxes. It appears as though she has a complete story now, but I disappoint her. Technically, vacationing is a goal, I say, but that does not stir my heart, nor does it set up strong opportunities for conflict. Something specific has to happen. I know, Diane states triumphantly. What if her sister is kidnapped and so she has to save her? Now Diane has a strong big event and an external journey. The problem is so common that I urge you to stop and examine your story. Are you missing a specific goal and an action track for your wonderful relationship story to roll on? I got to work on my relationship side, I think. All right, let's see. PH is on it. There was a man who told a joke about telling jokes. He followed it up with a joke about telling jokes, about telling jokes about telling jokes. And for the grand finale, he told a joke about telling jokes about telling jokes about telling jokes. And then he forgot where he started. Trying to make a 3-act jokes here. All right. Well, all right. We've been at it for an hour. This is I don't know how much of this we're going to go through the entire thing, because I think we get into examples and like formatting, proper formatting techniques, a style guide. That's actually might be important, but might not be necessarily be something to look at the entire morning grind. I've been writing in just Mac Pages, but I'm going to go to Final Draft once I'm ready to create the final draft. I found that trying to write in software that actually tries to format your screenplay while you're writing doesn't allow the writing to come. So, Stray, thank you, Stray. Stray sent a $10 super chat. Thank you, Stray. Stray says, cheeseburger fries. Yes, I'm going to go and get that. I'm going to let you know when I do. I got to get my car back still. I'm still fighting that battle. So as soon as I do, one of the things I'm going to definitely do is go and get a hamburger from the joint down the street. All right. Yes, everybody, have a wonderful day. Be creative. And thank you, Stray. Thank you. So be creative, be constructive. Let's get our work done. See you tomorrow.